Hello and welcome to the 11th installment of our War and Peace 50 Pages a Day Quarantine Edition read through. I am Matthew Robinson. Hello, Dimitri Portnoy.
Hello, Matt.
Today we are discussing pages 500 to 550. We are one episode away from our halfway mark, which is very exciting, and I'm feeling it now. I'm feeling the burn of having to read these 50 pages every day. I'm trying to integrate work more back in my life, and I'm definitely starting to find it difficult to find time. But that's what happens in a 50-day challenge. At some point, it gets tough, and you push through. True or untrue?
Yep,
All right.
true.
So I'm struggling, but I will persevere, and I will. I hope that if you are struggling, you will persevere as well. Once we get through the halfway mark, and we are on the downhill side of the mountain, hopefully things will move faster. So let's talk about these 50 pages. These 50 pages also were a little slow, which is probably part of the burn. You want to talk to us about what happened in these
Well,
50?
it started with a very long fox hunt, and
Mm-hmm.
our first George R. R. Martin style description of a Russian feast,
Yeah.
a Russian peasant feast with honey and jams,
Mm-hmm.
and I forget what else, but I think a ham was involved. Natasha sang,
Yeah.
Boris got played, and Pierre, I think, got our first actual recorded conversation with a woman.
Right. Very true. And then the mummers arrived, and then our own characters became the mummers and went from house to
Yes,
house in
yes.
drag. And
I think of them as carolers.
yeah, exactly. But they're dressed up as sort of like commedia dell'arte archetypal characters that probably were very normal for Russians and sound strange to us.
That's right. And well, it sounds a bit strange to me.
Sure.
This is not one of those traditions that survived into Soviet times.
Right.
Uh, Nikolai kissed Sonia for the first time
In
in
drag.
drag.
Yeah.
And Tolstoy actually gives Sonia the thought of how strange and how wonderful it is.
Yeah.
I'm kissing my love in a dress.
I think they did a little
And
more than kiss because they went off to the barn and then exited in
they
separate
went off to
separate
the barn
entrances.
and
So
came back yeah, on separate porches, as,
yeah,
as our translation has it. Um, uh, I wonder if the dress was removed or if it stayed on.
sure,
It is a dress. There are various ways to get around it.
sure. And so after that, Nikolai then tells his mother that he will not marry Julie Kerrigan for money and professes his love for Sonia, which almost drives her to the point of breaking. And she hopes that it won't happen. And Nikolai, causing much distress in his family, does what he always does when things get hard and goes back to war.
And do you remember who actually tries to mend fences for Nikolai and Countess Rostova? It's
Is
Natasha who rushes
Natasha right?
in.
Yes, she is the voice of reason there.
Again,
Yeah,
Natasha taking center stage, and saying something rather incoherent
mm.
but emotional in this way of hers that actually calms things down.
What do you remember? What she said? I don't remember it.
Actually, Tolstoy doesn't really even say.
Oh,
He
he just leaves it vague.
he
Okay.
relates the preamble,
Yeah.
kind of like let's everybody cool off, let's everybody cool
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
I want you to like listen to me, and then he says like he goes on to say she really didn't say anything, but it still worked.
Sure. Pierre goes through a very large change. When his mentor dies, he basically loses his his religion and
Yes,
goes back to drinking and gambling, and is quite lost again. He's sort of lost that ascetic. Religious lifestyle, and is the pendulum has swung all the way back to the other side. He's probably about to tie a policeman to a bear.
he decides instead to escape to Moscow, where
Mm-hmm.
he is welcomed with open arms
Yes.
because he is a big figure. and very rich. And Moscow is more accepting than St. Petersburg of people on the down and out socially. It is the sticks, it is the provinces, and they're happy to have him. More than that, his wife apparently follows him, although we
Yeah.
don't see much of her in action.
He's not very nice about his wife. He keeps calling her stupid, and everyone thinks she's smart, but she's really not, and she's just a beautiful body. And he's there's sort of a misogynist, I would say at this point.
Tolstoy is mum about it.
Yeah.
He doesn't really say whether he agrees with Pierre or
No.
not.
Yeah, I know it's true. I think
I,
it's
I want
coming
to
out of his
remind you
hurt.
that I want to remind you that part of Pierre's disillusionment with the Masons is how Boris decided to join,
Mm-hmm.
in order to meet people, and was snickering and snide and cynical towards him during his induction ceremony,
Yeah.
and that I think would turn off anybody when the person who's sleeping with your wife
Yeah.
comes over to your inner sanctum and puts you down there.
Absolutely. So most of our story moves to Moscow at this point as the Bolkonskis head to Moscow as well, including Maria and her unbelievably abusive father.
More and more abusive as he grows senile and forgetful.
Yeah, irascible. He basically kicks her out of the house, although he hasn't gone through with it yet where we are, and says he wants nothing to do with her, mainly because she has now gotten mad at her friend, who her father is either has actual feelings for or is just pretending to have feelings for in order to upset his daughter. But either way, he chooses to defend her friend over her and tells her to get out of the house. She then we get the feeling that she's for the first time starting to open up to the idea of having a husband. If her father's going to kick her out of the house, and if it's all going to be for naught, she might as well be well taken care of, and she's got quite a dowry. So as long as Julie Kerrigan is looking for a mate, maybe she might throw her hat in the ring as well.
They both go after Boris,
Yeah.
the
So
eligible bachelor.
Yeah, because Nikolai has taken himself out of the running now.
Yes, and Boris actually becomes ensnared in the wiles of Julie, who basically invites Anatoly over, flirts with him, makes it known that she is open to marrying Anatoly. Boris gets jealous, mostly because he was already counting the eggs that haven't hatched, as far as her estate goes, and says yes.
Yeah.
Proposes to her,
Yep.
which is part of Tolstoy's very cynical view of human nature. It's very comic. It's very funny when I read it, but it feels uncomfortable because you want there to be some kind of true love,
Yep.
but it's not on offer.
As we move to the halfway mark of the book, the game of musical chairs is almost complete as all of our characters are betrothed or ready to be betrothed and engaged. And we will now enter into the second half where we find out how these marriages go, or if they go at all. But pretty much everybody's coupled up at this point except Maria. She's sort of our only... Maria, well, Pierre's technically married, but I think he's quite unhappy. And, Andre and Natasha have not yet consummated their marriage legally or physically. So we'll see what happens there. But everybody's pretty much coupled up at this point. Just Maria's left.
The only thing is that the Sovereign and Napoleon are heading towards a breakup.
Yes. Well, that's the other thing that is ending is the peace looks like it's beginning to end. And while everybody settles into marriage, we might be settling back into war soon enough. And
That's true.
And that's it.
That's the story of life.
That's it. War, then
Yes.
peace, then war, then marriage, then divorce, then death, then life. It's the whole thing. And we will be back tomorrow. Go ahead.
Before we
Yes.
go, I want to make a couple of recommendations. One of which is kind of maybe questionable, but you said Love and Death. That's a terrific Woody Allen movie from 1975,
Uh-huh.
which is very much a comic version, an openly comic version of this book,
Sure.
and might be worth checking out. Also, you mentioned Tolstoy's death scene at the train
They made a
station.
movie of it.
And I remember seeing it on
Yeah.
film with Dustin Hoffman playing Tolstoy.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the opening montage to Tootsie.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Well, they also made a
see,
whole movie about that storyline as well. I have to remember the name of it, but yeah, you're.
oh, I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that. But if you want to see a wonderful and very comic 60-second interpretation of Dustin Hoffman as Tolstoy dying, surrounded by servants, and at the same time refusing to follow his director's instructions about blocking. It's
The movie I was
Tootsie.
thinking of is from 2009 called The Last Station, which is the story of Tolstoy's the last few weeks of his life in the train station where he dies, and starring Christopher Plummer as Tolstoy and Helen Mirren as his wife. Directed by Michael Hoffman. Yeah, I remember that movie. I saw it in the theaters because I am a Tolstoy fan. But yeah,
I did not. Should I?
Yeah,
catch it?
you should definitely watch it.
Now that we have all
I
the
think
time,
you'd be very interested in it, especially now. Yeah, yeah, and let us know what you think
Cool.
after you watch it for sure. The Last Station.
Of course.
Alrighty, we'll be back tomorrow at the halfway mark, page 600. Big milestone.
See you
5D.
then.